been lifted. Now, voters in Salford have been deciding today whether they want to have an elected mayor to run the city. Polls closed just over half an hour ago. Our political editor Arif Ansari is there following developments at the count for us tonight. Arif, any indication at this stage what the turnout has been?
No specific figure, Roger, but what you can see behind me is the counting underway. The postal ballots were here first and the other ballot boxes have begun arriving and they're being distributed around this school gymnasium and are being counted up as we speak. Now, although we haven't got an exact figure, turnout is certainly thought to be pretty low, below 20%. But that doesn't mean, of course, that the issue isn't important. They're not voting for a person, but for a system. Do you stick with the current system of voting for a councillor and they select the leader, or do you go to a system where you're voting specifically for a mayor, for a leader of the council? So plenty of political passions here, Roger.
And the issue of mayors also being considered in Liverpool and in Manchester, and a big development today in Liverpool. They've said that's what they want.
Yes, a big development in Liverpool, because the situation was that there was going to be a referendum in Liverpool in May. Now the City Council has confirmed that they actually want to go ahead with the mayoral vote just through council without bothering with the referendum. Interesting that in Liverpool, Labour's pushing for a mayor. Here in Salford, they're campaigning against one. OK,
Arif, thanks very much indeed. Arif Ansari there. Just before the weather, Royal Mail says it can't explain why a village post office in Cumbria has closed.
Success for the yes vote. The City of Salford votes for a directly elected mayor.
Ahead of the fire, it's now trying to find out why it happened. Andy Gill, BBC North West Today, Kirby.
Salford has become the first city in the northwest to confirm it's going to get a directly elected mayor. The election will take place in May. 56% of people voted yes in a referendum, but less than 1 in 5 people voted. Well, our political editor Arif Ansari joins me now in the studio. And was this result a surprise, Arif?
I think when you've got small turnouts, you're not quite sure which way it's going to go. And going into this, there'd been a very low-profile campaign, to be honest about it. Lots of people in Salford either didn't know it was happening or didn't understand what the issues were, and there was quite a lot of confusion, and frankly both campaigns on either side didn't help, because there were all sorts of arguments which actually didn't have a great deal to do with it. So I think maybe it is a surprise that they went for a yes, but it could have gone either way.
Because opponents, I guess, would say that it wasn't a big turnout, and that would be their argument.
Well, I think, you know, that is definitely a very fair point. You know, 18% was the turnout. If you look at the overall picture, just 10% of voters in Salford wanted to go for a directly elected mayor. The other 90% either said no or didn't vote at all. So it's a very fair point. But at the end of the day, it is a vote, yes, and more people voted yes than no.
Absolutely. And now, will this result encourage people in cities like Liverpool and Manchester that want an elected mayor there?
Well, I think it is significant, because what we've got across the region, and this, by the way, will be the first directly elected mayor in the northwest, is this push to get more of these kinds of directly elected figures in the region. Now, we know Liverpool has decided to do without a referendum at all. They're trying to just go ahead with a vote in council. I wonder what's going to happen in Manchester, where there's due to be a referendum in May. Maybe they're going to say, you know what, actually maybe we should go for one as well.
And press ahead. Great. Arif, thank you very much. Greater Manchester Police say they've received...
Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to the Lunchtime News from ITV Granada. Voters in Salford have said yes to the idea of selecting a directly elected mayor for the city. The result came last night. Overall, though, just 17,000 people actually voted in favour of the move. Claire Ashforth was at the count.
They say that every vote counts. Last night, 17,000 votes certainly did. In a campaign to select an elected mayor for Salford, just 10% of the city's voters turned out to support the scheme. But as the other 90% of voters either stayed away from the polls or voted no, the 17,000 yes votes were enough to ensure that Salford will now elect a mayor who will oversee what is currently a Labour-led council.
Good riddance to a poor Labour!
Do you think that's in the spirit of election night?
Yes, yes, it's been hard work.
We've took on basically the heartland of Labour, right? It's been a tough 12 months, and it's just a relief to actually say, well, we've done it.
I've always believed if you enter a game, you have to play by the rules, and that's, although I'm disappointed with the result, I now intend to fight for the election of a Labour mayor in May.
The English Democrats and the Labour Party may be at odds, but the Conservatives are delighted, not least because the Prime Minister himself supports the scheme.
And I'm just going to text him now and say that we've done it. So I'm really delighted.
The parties have yet to put forward their mayoral candidates. The vote itself will take place in May. Claire Ashforth, Granada News, Salford.
An investigation is underway after another fire at a wood chip factory on Merseyside. 45.
Good morning and welcome to the news from the Northwest. Salford is to have a directly elected mayor. Residents have voted yes in a referendum which was triggered by a public petition led by the English Democrats. Turnout was just 18%. The election will be held in May on the same day as the local elections. Councillors campaigning for a no vote say they'll still field a mayoral candidate under the new system despite the result.
Of course I'm disappointed, but at the same time, I've fought and won many battles. I've also fought and lost a few battles. So as far as I'm concerned, we have to accept the result and we have to move on from that.
We're pleased we've done it. It's took 12 months virtually to the day to get the signatures, to get the referendum called and to get a yes vote. So we're just over the moon, and hopefully this will be a beacon to other towns, other cities, that people can actually make a change. If they come out and vote, you can make a change in how your city's run.
Up to 40 firefighters have been at a blaze at the Sonai wood chip.
Trying to find out why the fire broke out. Andy Gill, BBC Northwest Tonight, Kirby.
Salford has become the first city in the Northwest to vote to have an elected mayor. The election will take place in May for a more powerful leader of the council, which will be directly selected by the voters.
A referendum was held in Salford yesterday and there was a clear win for the Yes campaign, but fewer than 1 in 5 people bothered to vote. Well, our political editor Arif Ansari was at the count.
If the battle was to interest voters, it was lost among empty polling stations. Turnout was just 18%.
The number of votes cast in favour of yes was 17,000.
That was 56% of the vote. Victory for an alliance of English Democrats and community activists.
We've got the yes vote. Now we want to get people more engaged in an elected mayor, a mayor who can grab all the communities together and push Salford forward for the better.
So now voters will select an individual who they want to be mayor. The existing system of council leader will soon end.
We have to accept that's the result. I think people will feel probably that they want to have more of a say in who is actually leading the council, and that's fine. What I'd be concerned about is if they were voting on the basis of a rather false prospectus of halving the council tax.
And you're backtracking because you do not want to lose control.
About backtracking.
This has stirred up passion on the council, but what about on the streets?
It was very, very confusing, but it's happened, so we'll just have to take it on the chin and see what we get.
I voted yes because we need somebody on our side.
I'm not really bothered if he's a mayor or not.
Even so, things have changed here, and in May, voters will elect the very first mayor of Salford.
Well, Arif is here with us now, and I would imagine, Arif, that opponents will point out that it was a very low turnout. But what are the wider implications of this result?
Well, those critics have got a point, of course, Annabelle, because if you actually boil the figures down, then only 10% of voters in Salford voted to switch to a mayor. The other 90% either voted no or overwhelmingly didn't vote at all. But frankly, a win is a win, and that's what happened. There was a clear win for the Yes campaign, and everybody has to move on from that. Now, as for the implications, we're in a position where Liverpool and Manchester are also heading in the direction of a mayor. In Liverpool, the City Council is essentially saying we no longer believe there needs to be a referendum. Instead, we can just have a vote within the council. council. And I suspect the leader there, Joe Anderson, might be able to point to this referendum and say, look, when people are given the choice, overwhelmingly they aren't interested. And so it's fine for us to make that decision. In terms of Manchester, they're still very much against having one, but I wonder if the pressure of Liverpool and Salford might make them think again.
Yeah, interesting stuff. Thank you very much, Arif.
A man who collected information.
Claire Fallon, Granada Reports, Manchester.
Next, in an historic vote, the people of Salford have said they do want the chance to hold an election for the post of mayor. Well, a few of them do anyway.
Yes, a very poor turnout indeed in the referendum yesterday, but that vote for a mayor will now go ahead in May. Well, it's over now to our political correspondent Claire Ashforth, who was at Salford Town Hall last night to see the results come in. Claire, what can you tell us?
Well, in the early hours of this morning, there was indeed a yes vote, but it was a far from ringing endorsement of elected mayors. Of an electorate of over 170,000 people in Salford, just over 30,000 people actually bothered to vote. The election turnout was just 18%, with just over 10% of voters actually voting in favour of having a directly elected mayor in Salford. But while it may be a low number, it is enough to give the city its first mayor. So what's next for Salford? And who's in the frame for the new top job?
Salford may not look any different, but last night its political landscape was shaken up. Today it's hardly been noticed, but then the vote to make the changes was largely unnoticed too. Led by the English Democrats, the Yes campaign for a mayor of Salford won last night's referendum vote, but it was far from a landslide.
The number of votes cast in favour of yes was 17,300.
Only 1 in 10 potential voters voted yes. 9 in 10 voted no or didn't vote at all.
153.
Just over 10% of the total voting population here in Salford voted yes to electing a mayor. Yet those 17,000 votes cast in favour compared to the 13,000 who turned out to vote against mean that Salford will now elect a mayor.
Yes! Good riddance to a poor Labour!
Do you think that's in the spirit of election night?
Yes, yes, it's been hard work. We've took on basically the heartland of Labour, right? It's been a tough 12 months. And it's just a relief to actually say, well, we've done it.
I've always believed if you enter a game, you have to play by the rules, and that's, although I'm disappointed with the result, I now intend to fight for the election of a Labour mayor in May.
The English Democrats and the Labour Party may be at odds, but the Conservatives are delighted, not least because the Prime Minister himself supports the scheme.
And I'm just going to text him now and say that we've done it. So I'm really delighted.
So who will be mayor? As the dust settles today, parties are keeping their cards close. Having led the English Democrat campaign, Stephen Morris is likely to be his party's candidate, but he'll face competition from the main political parties. Local Labour MPs Hazel Blears and Barbara Keeley were against the idea of mayors, making Labour council leader John Merry the likely forerunner. The Conservatives and Lib Dems will field candidates, but there's nothing to say candidates must be politicians. Salford has its fair share of famous faces who might fancy representing their city. The mayoral vote itself will now take place at the same time as the local elections in May. The thought being that next time around it may encourage more than 1 in 5 voters to actually vote. Claire Ashforth, Granada Reports, Salford.
Next, there's been another fire at the Sonai wood chip factory at Kirby.